afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of the Democratic View. And we have a rather different scenario this time. I have three guests. I didn't even think I could fit 3 chairs here. And they are going to talk about something that I know is just driving all of us in East Hampton quite nuts. And first, I have Michael Brown, who is the co-chairman of the group called Save East Hampton. Deb Foster, who we all know is a former council person, one of the originators and writers of the comprehensive plan, as well as a retired Springs teacher. Woo-woo. A colleague, I might add.
Yes.
And Jeremy Samuelson, who is a person who lives in the area, as well as having some connections with another group in Montauk. Welcome, and we want to hear all about this particular situation. And how did it get started? What was the beginning of this? What did you first notice?
What did we first notice? I think we first noticed poles going in place, and they seemed a bit out of proportion. They were much thicker, they were taller. And of course I just started raising some eyebrows, but you know, maybe it was 1 or 2. I had not heard of the big plan. When you started seeing more and more of them going up along a road, we all started getting a little nervous. And my wife, Lynn, started knocking on doors with our neighbor, Tim Walters, and just started asking questions. Do you know what's going on? And everyone would have the same reaction. No, but these poles are hideous. What's going on? I think that was when the light bulb went off. We just started realizing, okay, we're not the only ones in the dark here. A lot of people don't know what's going on. We were very concerned, so we just quickly formulated a group of people, started knocking on more doors, and everyone seemed to have the same response. So we just felt like we need to get together and have a voice. And we did. We formed a group called Save East Hampton, and just started meeting every other night or so and just start talking about what could we do here. We have to just start asking questions. We have to go talk to our officials. We have to do this, but let's do it collectively and see where we could go with this. The more questions we asked, the more frustrated we got.
And I might add that, of course, all of this began after January 1st when PSEG, who was appointed by Governor Cuomo to take over from LIPA or from National Grid, who was handling that kind of maintenance work from LIPA.
Right.
And that was the beginning of when this all happened.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
I just want to pull back a little bit and put on my planning board and town board former hat. What we're talking about, you're talking from your front yard and beautiful village streets. We're talking about 6 miles cutting through the town of East Hampton of utility poles that are up to 60 feet tall, much thicker, and are coming in with 3 times the kilovolts that currently exist. I thought that was an apt name, kilovolts. And how did they get to do this without most of the town, practically all the town not knowing? This piece of paper right here. East Hampton, New York, premier resort on the East Coast in New York State. A beautiful community, has these monstrous utility poles marching through the center of our town because of a road opening permit. This cannot happen. I'll leave it at that, but I have more to say, of course.
So they got this road opening permit from the Department of Highway.
Yes.
And no one really knew what it was about.
I'm going to speak on behalf of the town because I know the procedures there. 2 LIPA executives came out and talked with then former Supervisor Wilkinson and Councilwoman Quigley and the highway
My
superintendent,
favorite people.
and went into their office and handed over an environmental assessment about this thick and said, what we want to do is make East Hampton safer in case of storms with getting plugged in and having power. Sounded good. That was the end of it. So they turned to the highway superintendent. Now, I got this right from Steve, or I wouldn't repeat it. Somebody in the room, Steve Lynch, and said, well, what's next? And they said, we need a road opening permit. Anytime utilities are going in, there is an easement on either side of our highways that the town owns. So they need a permit from the town. That law's now to be changed. He signed it, 10/7/13, East Hampton Town Highway Department, for a project that, in my 35 years of trying to work with others who love this town to keep it beautiful, is by far the most hideous, ugly, unsafe project to cut through the heart of this town.
Oh, yes, I know. And dear governor gave us this company.
You can take it back.
Well, you know, we've already had, I saw, now we're just talking about the aesthetics of it. We're talking so far only the beauty of what
There's
it's
other
doing to a place that we're all madly in love with. I'm assuming you're as madly in love as I am. I mean, I live here by choice. You know, I turned that corner on 27, saw that pond.
Fall in love.
This is me. This is where I want to be forever. You know, bought my house in 3 days.
That's me.
And I have never regretted one moment. I mean, my kids say, go away for this winter. And I say, I can't leave here. I love it. You know,
Winter's our big secret.
yeah, I know.
It's best.
And all of a sudden, there's this thing that's going to change the look of it, but it's not just the look. There is much more to this whole situation. Now, I know that it's close to your house. Mm-hmm. And how do you feel about that?
Well, I have a lot of questions. I think, you know, there's a couple things that are broken about the process here. And, you know, the first one is that state environmental law requires us to do what's called a hard look. And that look has to do with potential environmental impacts, impacts to the community in terms of character of the community, transportation, you know, the ability of the grid that's going to go in place to actually provide the service that they're describing. Unfortunately, what happened here was LIPA, now PSE&G, but at the time LIPA, went through what could be described as maybe a compliant secret process to the letter of the law, although I would question that. But it certainly wasn't compliant with the spirit of the law. So we have a process that was truncated where not everyone who was supposed to be informed, homeowners like myself included, was informed. So there was a process that went on where permits were issued and nobody really took that hard look that's required under state law. And then all of a sudden the thing starts going in the ground and people take a look around, as Mike said, and they say, hang on, you know, let's go back and look at the paperwork. So even if you go back and you look at the paperwork now, what's being done doesn't really comport with the description that was provided to the town. So I think there's plenty of blame to go around here, and you know, I guess there's some value in going back and saying, how do we get into this mess? But at this moment, we've got crews literally outside who are working on this project to, you know, put these huge poles up and put this 33 kilovolt wire in place. And when you start peeling back the layers and asking questions, what is it, where does it go, how big is it, how are we paying for it, how did decisions get made, you quickly find out that, you know, there's more questions than answers. So there was definitely a rush to judgment here, which has gotten us into a bit of a quagmire collectively. I mean, you know, New York State, East Hampton Town, East Hampton Village, the residents, PSE&G, we're all right now in the middle of a muddle where really the only sensible thing I would argue is for us to have a timeout. You know, we've got to put the brakes on. We've got to ask for everyone to come back to the table and figure out, what is this thing? What is the need? Where does it go? How much does it cost? What are the alternatives for how we can actually deal with this thing? So, we and the folks sitting here, but Save East Hampton, Larry Cantwell's East Hampton Town Supervisor, Mayor Rickenback from the village, State Assemblyman Fred Thiel, Ken Laval, they've all stood up and reached out to the governor's office. That message was heard this week. And the governor's office reached back out directly to Supervisor Cantwell and said, okay, I've received your information, some of my staff is reviewing it. That's a good first step, but it's only a first step. What we really need now is for the brakes to be put on the project, for PSE&G to stop having a mindset that says, well, we've got a road opening permit, we've got everything we need. Because the goal here should be to build something that actually serves the needs of the community where it's going in. So some folks up until now have said, well, I live in Springs, or I live in Montauk. It's not going down my street. Why should I care about this? Well, there's a couple reasons. The first one is this, ironically, the material that's going in, the 33 kilovolt line that's being installed by PSE&G, ironically, it's not going to serve my house. It's serving the rest of the community. So, how we build our infrastructure has an impact on all of us. We all pay for it to a certain extent. So when you get beyond aesthetics, though, you have PSE&G telling us that they're building a more resilient system. And what they mean by that is if there's a future storm, and unfortunately we all know there will be, if there's another Hurricane Sandy or just a big heavy ice storm, the electricity grid is going to go down. And they're offering this as a solution. Well, unfortunately, it's a half measure. What we know from everywhere around the country, from New York State and internationally, if you want to build a truly resilient system, you put the wires underground. And it costs more on the front end, that's true, but it actually costs less on the back end. So when you look at the true cost of doing this program, if you take an 18-month or a 24-month snapshot, of course, it costs more to do it right. But the reality is, if you do it right, you're going to pay more up front, but your maintenance costs, you're having to come back over time and replace poles, replace lines that have snapped because of tree damage. All those costs quickly get you out in front of the money that you would have spent doing this thing right on the front end. So my personal feeling is PSE&G has come to the community saying, we want to build a more resilient system. We're here for you as your power provider. We want to protect you in a future storm. And my response to that is to say, that's great, I welcome that, but let's actually do what you're talking about. Let's not just give this lip service. Let's admit that doing something right costs a little more on the front end. Let's figure out what the funding mechanisms are to go ahead and pay for that. Now, interestingly, Deb has a copy of Newsday here. Front page of Newsday today says something like $1.4 billion is available for burying power lines in New York State.
To LIPA, the very Long Island utility that we're talking about. And the quote is, the money would allow LIPA to bury power lines. So why are they putting in 1960s infrastructure 20 feet from people's homes? Excuse me for a second. Look at this. Teacher, visual, may I?
Yes.
Just so we get an idea. Say this is the size of a pole. I won't even say 60 feet. Let's say they're 50 feet. And this is the roof of Michael's house. It's twice the size. And 20 feet would be about there. So if you take a look at the heights, how would you like to go in and out of your door for the rest of your life and have this 20 feet from your children's bedroom? Look at the height of that. Going down a road in the village that is 18 feet wide. It's abhorrent. Get with the 2014 program and bury them. You got the money to do it. The other thing they say is, it's not efficient because, when they're buried, we can't find them. I'm watching a television show on Discovery last night, and these are fishermen from Gloucester that have this thing set up in their cabin where they can find tuna a mile, less than a mile under the water. So this is all, I'm so angry about this. This is bull. However, Jeremy makes a good point, and I know Michael will jump in on this too. The push of the community coming together is to move forward. What's done is done. How can we move forward together at every level to get these transmission lines buried. It's not rocket science.
Now, I have to interrupt because I got to tell you something. I'm a 35-year person going to Fire Island. I can't tell you how many storms I have been evacuated from and how many times, I mean, even in Sandy and in Irene. In Sandy, I was without power for 9 days and then surged by life. I lost everything electrical in my house, which
We talked in the library.
you know, and when you watch, there was a show that I had the privilege to see that took place in the Bridgehampton Library, when they talked about how they have to get people from Texas, Oregon, all over the country. Oh, that's why it takes so long, because they got to come with their trucks.
Right. And what are they doing?
every
They're repairing
storm?
overhead lines that got damaged.
Every storm
that's the whole-
these people are coming from, you know how many, I mean, they must have spent that $1 billion since I've been, you know, since 1961, with all of the storms that I know. I don't understand it. I really don't understand it.
Well, I think we could hold Cuomo to his word, too, because in today's Newsday, he's quoted in this article, the cover story, we need to reimagine New York for the new reality of extreme weather. And I wish your show could put videos up of what they're doing. Is that really reimagining?
Well, actually, we do have a
is that?
picture,
Good.
and we're going to show the picture that was in the, you know, believe it was in the Star. And, Lena, you want to show that picture, darling? And I mean, when I saw that, because I haven't really seen them, although I did today see them for the first time, but I hadn't seen them until then. I just heard one of your members at both boards talking about not the aesthetics, which is what I'm crazy about, what's driving me nuts, but also talking about, hey, what are the health risks that are involved here? Do we really know? Do we really know what this amount of electricity is going to do?
And the problem here is I don't think we do know, but I can only go back and think of the perfect example of big tobacco companies back decades ago saying, we don't have the evidence that smoking is harmful. It's equivalent to that. And it's a bit, you know, you kind of see the train coming. It's like, you know, there are going to be harms, but let's even put that aside. It's also the safety issue with the disproportion of the poles in the vicinity to other homes, and of course the aesthetic. There's too many things to argue about here with this being a problem.
What kind of substances are on these poles that
That
are
too.
going to filter down
Right.
into our aquifer? I mean, I do shows about the water all the time because that is one of my primary issues.
Right.
And I know what a lot of people don't always realize is the only water we've got on Long Island is under our feet.
Right.
So here's one for you, and this has been proven. The wood that they're treating this with, and I know this as a teacher and planning board member, is not allowed for playground equipment, and it's not allowed to go in our water to make piers. But it's okay to put 20 feet from your well next to your home.
Oh, geez, I didn't even think of that. Wow.
Unfortunately, there's a broader question here. You know, we've focused on the current manifestation of, you know, the building that's going on now. But if you open a copy of the newspaper this week and you take a look, or you look at the town board agenda even from last night, there's requests for proposals that are being put out at this point for creating electrical generation and distribution infrastructure at East Hampton Airport. You've got another set of RFPs that just went out, requests for proposals that just went out for looking at siting new energy transmission and infrastructure throughout East Hampton town. So everywhere from Camp Hero to, you know, the LIPA substation that's basically sitting in the water at Fort Pond in Montauk. They're talking about relocating some of that stuff, you know, which you can argue makes a lot of sense and is necessary. The point I'm trying to make is that What we don't seem to have going on right now is a broader look. We've got a segmented approach to what is the energy need in our town. No one's pretending that we don't need power. You know, I'm going to go home this evening, I'm going to watch, you know, the closing night of the Olympics, and, you know, of course, I'm going to, you know, use my toaster, all of that. Nobody's arguing that we don't have infrastructure needs. What we are arguing is that as we create infrastructure, as we build it, we want to minimize impacts to health. We want to minimize environmental impacts. We want to minimize impacts to groundwater and to scenic resources. And we want to make sure we're getting the most bang for our buck. And when we ask those questions, we want to make sure that we're coordinating the various pieces of the puzzle so that whoever is charged, whatever subcontractor to a subcontractor is thinking they're going to do something at Camp Hero in Montauk is actually plugging into a grid that is truly a grid, where there's a master plan and a master design that has been asked, you know, okay, we're doing this major, large-scale, multi-million-dollar project running 6 miles of line in East Hampton through the town and the village. What's the connection to what's being proposed currently at one end of town in Montauk or at the other end of town at the airport in Wainscott?
My alarm bells, as I know just about to the lot, how many are vacant. We're 92% built out in this town. Most towns on Long Island have 13 kilovolt systems. We're now going up to 33, and we're coming up against the ocean. We're going to Portugal with this. So I begin to think, all right, so that's 2 times what we have now. And a recent quote from one of their spokespeople said, we're going to go all the way out to, well, they said Cape Hero, but Camp Hero, which is federal land. So now I'm thinking, cha-ching, cha-ching, is this all about a federal homeland security proposal? You know, in World War II, there were submarines out there that were Nazi submarines.
Yeah, we
We
know.
had a big radar tower. What's going on? Why would you meet future East Hampton energy demands when our population is capped?
Well, the radar tower was actually built after World War II.
Was
but
it?
Yeah, that was part of a Soviet missile tracking system.
Oh,
But
of
that's
course,
all right,
the
yeah.
Cold War,
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
That's right, we had that other war.
We had that Cold War.
Yeah, that's us, the war people. You know, what can the individual person do to help in this situation?
This group has been awesome in 3 weeks. The retired wrestling coach, an architect, a counselor at East Hampton High School, they are meeting almost daily in someone's home on McGurk Street. So what can people
Well,
do?
we've been meeting in a lot of different places, but you could, first of all, you can access we do have a Facebook page where we're just trying to compile everything together so that we can just broadcast the information that we're gathering. It's all happening very quickly.
And that would be under Save East Hampton?
Yeah,
It
how
would
do
be
we get to
save,
it?
it would be /SaveEH.
It-
And-
Slash
get to it.
save each.
Well, the easiest thing, if you're on Facebook, just go to Facebook, in the search bar, just type Save EH, and you'll get immediately to it. The other way to reach out is saveeasthampton@gmail.com. So that's an email address, obviously. So 2 ways to get in touch. One is saveeasthampton@gmail.com. The other one is do that search on Facebook, Save EH. Really what we're asking people to do, though, and you can figure this out through both of those resources. What we're really asking people to do is to reach out directly to the governor, and all the contact information is on the Facebook page. Alternatively, I would say also continue to talk directly to your local elected officials. Folks who have big responsibilities and a lot of projects that are open on their desk, make a certain amount of their decision about what to get engaged in based on how many calls and how much feedback they're getting from the community. And so far, people have been really good. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people have signed petitions, old school hard copies, online copies, but we've got to keep the pressure on.
Now, I haven't seen a copy of a petition. I'm a great petition signer. And I'm a great petition goer after. I've done them myself. But
I'll bring one.
where would I sign? I got to
I'll
sign
bring
one.
with.
Yeah.
That's the hard copy one. You could also engage in a petition that is online as well. It's from change.org, but there's a link on our Facebook page. And every time you do that you sign that petition, it sends an email to
The governor.
Governor Cuomo and down the line, I believe, all the
Well, one of the reasons I
political
have
people.
bags under my eyes today is because I was up late composing a letter to Governor
You write
Cuomo
good letters.
that I will send to him about, and reminding him that he's running for governor again. And if he expects to carry this town, he better do something about it, because we're not going to be happy. You know, and I don't know whether it would be you just wouldn't vote for him, or you'd vote for the other guy, whoever the other guy would be. But the truth of the matter is, look, you have to be a man of your word. And you can't disregard all of these issues that we are having with this situation.
I've dabbled my toe a little bit in local politics. And it's critical to get at the right person at the right time. This utility should come to the table, but they're not going to say stop until somebody above them says stop. And the good thing Cuomo did when he got in office is he realized LIPA was back in the 1960s. So he pushed them aside, and he brought in this New Jersey company that is run by military people, which is get her done. But he saw that the board that he appointed would report essentially to him, so he could see things could get done. Well, ironically, their first major project is something we don't want, and they are working about 6 days a week, 10 hours a day. So he's got to say, stop, and let's sit down and see what we're doing here. And now we have the money, maybe, from the funds to put them underground.
So, ladies and gentlemen, here's the thing. You need to write a letter to the governor. I would CC it also to Fred Thiel and Ken LaValle, because they need to know also how we all feel, because they also run pretty soon. And that's the way to deal with politicians.
That's democracy.
That's what it is. It's
democracy.
at the vote, you know. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Obviously, you
Thank
can
you for
see
having
I'm
us.
very passionate about this issue
Yeah,
also.
great.
Okay.